What is up guys, and welcome back to another Classic WoW video. So today we are looking at Classic Fresh, also called WoW Classic Season of Mastery, and we are talking about cloth farming. I made a video like this for the original Classic WoW, which you guys seemed to find really helpful, so my goal is to make an even better version this time around. So to improve on my previous one, I'm going to be going over each individual type of cloth, and talk about where to obtain that piece of cloth, both in the open world and in dungeons. Last time I only covered open world farming, but this time I'll also mention which dungeons you will find them in, so that if you do plan to dungeon level in Classic Fresh, you know which types of cloth you will find inside those dungeons. And for those you don't get from your dungeons, you will have open world farming alternatives that you can farm, so you can farm them later. Cloth is on high demand because of First Aid as well as Tailoring, and a lot of cloth users will be leveling up Tailoring so they can craft their raiding previous items, and also many players will prioritize First Aid, meaning that cloth can be a good way of making gold really early on, but also there's a high chance that you clicked on this video because you need cloth yourself. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Linen cloth. This type of cloth can be found by pretty much every type of humanoid mob in starting zones and early dungeons, but either way, let's cover a couple of locations where you can farm this. So on the Alliance side, once you hit level 10, you have the options of going to Darkshore, Loch Modan or Westfall, and which zone you go for will usually be decided by which race you choose to play. For Darkshore, you have these locations that I would recommend farming at. So you have the Grells in the middle, right next to Aberdeen, and also just south of Aberdeen you got the Blackwood Fir Bogs and Humanoid Ghosts just south of Aberdeen, and all of these locations are great for linen cloth. In Westfall you have many different locations, and instead of listing all of them, here you have a screenshot showing you the different locations, level requirements, and which types of mobs that you will be fighting. For Loch Modan you have 4 main locations, 3 of which are Trogs and the final one is Tunnel Rats. On the Horde side, once you hit level 10 you will either find yourself in the Barrens or in Silver Pine Forest, once again decided mostly by your race. For Silver Pine Forest you have both rot hides and humanoids available just as you enter the zone itself, which are perfectly within your level range, and further south you have a couple of higher level farming locations as well. In the Barrens you have a lot of different locations, and once again here's the screenshot, pick your spot and go farm. Personally I prefer the Harpies up northwest, but they are level 14 plus. If you are playing Horde you will also find a lot of linen cloth inside Ragefire Chasm, and if you're Alliance you will find a lot of linen cloth in the Dead Mines. So wool cloth. This type of cloth can be found by pretty much every humanoid about level 20, or roughly in the level 20 range. For Kalimdor I would recommend either Ashenvale or Stonetalon Mountains, both of which have several locations that are incredible for farming wool cloth. For the Eastern Kingdoms you have Redridge Mountains, Duskwood, Wetlands and Hillsbrad Foothills. While Duskwood, Wetlands and Hillsbrad Foothills might not have many different farming locations, the ones they do have are very efficient, with very fast respawn timers, and same with Redridge Mountains as well, which offers a lot of different places to farm for wool cloth, while also offering AoE pulling possibilities if you are an AoE class, but it's also really good for single target farming. As for dungeons where you'll find the wool cloth, you will see them drop both in Shadowfang Keep, the Stockades and Blackfathom Deeps. So if you plan on doing any of those dungeons, you'll probably get enough wool cloth to the point where you won't need to specifically farm for it, especially if you plan to farm these dungeons. You will also get wool cloth from previous dungeons, such as the Dead Mines or Wailing Caverns, though you will usually get more linen cloth than wool cloth. Silk cloth. So for this one, let's switch it up just to keep it interesting, and go with dungeons first. Probably gonna trigger some OCDs right there, but hey, for this one I think a lot of you might obtain it in dungeons, and therefore I'm just gonna cover dungeons first, and then go on to open world farming locations later on, just in case you happen to still need silk cloth after your dungeon runs. So the reason I will cover dungeons first is that a lot of you will get a lot of silk cloth from Scarlet Monastery, and I truly mean a lot. Scarlet Monastery was also a huge grindfest in Classic WoW, where people would literally form 5-man groups and dungeon cleave from level 30 to 40 inside Scarlet Monastery, So, and if the same thing happens again in Classic Fresh, you will not need to farm silk cloth outside of dungeons at all. But on the off chance that you do need to farm some silk cloth outside of dungeons, you can find a couple of locations in Thousand Needles, as well as Alterac Mountains, and my preferred silk cloth farm outside of dungeons is the Harpy Cave in Thousand Needles, which you can find right here. This cave has a lot of harpies with a great loot table, including silk cloth, and they do respawn very fast. Before we move on, I also just want to shout out RestedXP, which is an incredible leveling add-on that guides you through the world of Azeroth and will significantly speed up your leveling process. This add-on is made by speed levelers in the Classic WoW community, including Tommy Salami, Seven Leaves, Sarand, Tactics and Cargoes, and by clicking my link in the description, you will get a discount on their website. So, Mageweave Cloth. When it comes to Mageweave Cloth, I'm actually gonna do the same thing here as well and go for dungeons first, because I do think a lot of you will be running some dungeons where you will find Mageweave Cloth. First off, you will find some Mageweave Cloth in the latter wings of Scarlet Monastery, although the main cloth from there will still be silk. Once you move on to higher levels, you will also find a lot of Mageweave in Sulfarak, which is a dungeon that most of you will probably go through at least once for those big boy dungeon quests, and that beefy mount speed trinket, and if you're a mage you'll probably spend quite some time gold farming in here as well. Other dungeons where you will find Mageweave Cloth include Razorfen Downs, Uldaman and Moradin. If you need to farm Mageweave Cloth outside of dungeons, I would recommend either going to Tanaris or Feralas, both of which have a lot of different options for exactly where you can farm. Runecloth is the final piece of cloth outside of specific types of cloth such as Felcloth or Mooncloth, and Runecloth can drop from enemies above level 50, or in general level 50 to 60 mobs. If you want to specifically farm for Runecloth, I would highly suggest Western Plaguelands, as that zone in particular has a lot of great farming options with really high mob density and fast respawns, such as the different acre fields of humans and undead. You also have several camps throughout the zone with humanoids from the Scarlet Crusade in the level range of 52 to 58, all of which can drop Runecloth, and also has a great loot table in general. Outside of that you also have Eastern Plaguelands, Silithus and Deadwind Pass, which also offers possibilities within Runecloth farming. As for dungeons, pretty much any high level dungeon will do, such as LBRS and Blackrock Depths, among others, but those do have a lot of humanoids in them. So Felcloth, this is a specific type of cloth that only drops from demons, and this was my go-to item for gold farming early in the original Classic WoW, and this is a rare type of cloth that only has a 3 to 5% drop chance off of specific demons around Azeroth. Felcloth can usually be found from satyrs at level 50 plus, and my go-to spots are these 3 satyr camps in Ashara, as well as these satyr camps in Felwood. These will most likely be highly contested, at least early in Classic Fresh, so if you are playing on a PvP server you should definitely expect some competition. Felcloth can also be found in Dire Maul, specifically in the Warpwood Quarter, and these can all actually be solo farmed by a lot of classes, and they have a much higher drop rate of Felcloth as well. And that is pretty much it, guys. That is how you can obtain the different types of cloth in Classic Fresh, both in dungeons and in the open world, as well as specific farming locations in the open world. Hopefully you guys found this video helpful and informative, and hopefully it helps you in your Classic Fresh journey. Remember to smash that like button down below for the YouTube algorithm, and make sure you subscribe for more Classic Fresh content. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again very soon.